Hey, John here, the Crafty Tech Guy. So this is a wreath kit that Trendy Tree sent me. It's a new partnership between the Crafty Tech Guy and Trendy Tree. They will begin sending me kits and I will make them live on TikTok, and then the kit will also be available for purchase. So if you like this kit and you want to purchase this Easter kit, you can go to www.wreathkitbyjohn.com and purchase one. At the time of this recording, there were about 16 left. Okay, let's go over what's in the kit. All right, they sent me 3 picks. These are flocked Easter eggs on a long stem. Next, we have a 15-inch work form. So these are white iridescent tines that are on this work form. They're going to be so pretty and add a lot of accent to this wreath. Next, we have this beautiful Happy Easter wooden sign that we'll be attaching to the wreath. The kit comes with 4 different ribbons, 2 rolls of mesh, and again the 3 picks. So this is your complete wreath kit. Okay, let's prep our sign. So I use cable tie mounts. You're going to see me add them here in a minute. But first we're going to snip off this rope that came on the sign. Next we're going to remove these stickers. So when you're selling this wreath to a customer, you don't want them to know where you purchased your supplies or where they came from. So always remove any of those identifying stickers on any of your supplies. First, I'm going to start with some super glue. I always put super glue down first to just add a really strong bond from the cable mount to the surface, whether it's a wooden sign or a metal sign. All right, I'm grabbing some cable tie mounts. You can get these on Amazon. Peel off the adhesive backing on the cable tie mount and just press it down. Once we get these pressed down, we're going to surround the entire cable mount with hot glue. Once the hot glue is on there, we're going to set the sign to the side for it to cure while we start working on our wreath. All right, let's grab our first roll of mesh. This is a 10-inch fabric mesh. So we're going to be using about 1 3/4 roll of mesh. I'm going to start with doing 12-inch poofs all the way around the top and the bottom. You're going to notice that I start on the top row. It's just a matter of personal preference. Some people start on the bottom row, some people start on the top row. The people that I watched initially when learning how to make wreaths always started on the top row, so that is how I start my mesh out. Next, I'm going to go around and just check all the ties on my wreath frame. Make sure there's, 2 ties for every single one that's on here. Sometimes one of them get broken off. I want to make sure they're all tight and none of them are loosey-goosey. If they are loosey-goosey, you can put some hot glue there at the base of the tie just to add a little bit of strength. All right, now we're going to start putting our poofs on. I kind of gather up one end of that 10-inch mesh, push that mesh all the way down to that metal ring, twist, twist, twist. We're going to pick a number on our mat, line up that twist tie to that number, come over 12 inches, gather it up, create that first poof, come over to the next tie, twist, 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 make sure that mesh is all the way down to the metal. You want a very tight fit of that mesh and that twist tie. Now we're going to go over 12 inches again, put in the next poof, and we're going to continue this process all the way around the top and all the way around the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to add 10 or 20-inch ruffles. So this is 10-inch mesh, and I'm going to cut them at 20 inches. And I'm doing this because I want to add additional fullness, thickness to the wreath. I want to make sure there's enough mesh there to have a really good strong base. That strong base is going to give us plenty of support to hold up our sign, our ribbon tails, our bow, and these flocked Easter egg picks that I'm going to put around the bow and there at the top of the sign. So I've lined up the edge of my mesh to the 36 mark on my mat, and I'm just bringing that mesh over to the 16 mark and cutting it for a 20-inch ruffle. Now that all 18 pieces are cut, I'm going to start ruffling. So I'm going to put my hands, one hand on the left, one hand on the right, and then my thumbs are in the center. And then I'm just gathering that mesh up using my fingers to bring that mesh towards me, ruffling it up there between my fingers and my thumb, completing up an entire gather. And then I'm going to put this gather into one of the ties. I'm going to continue putting these in all around the 8 ties on the top and the 10 ties on the bottom. As you can see here with all of the poops and the ruffles, look how full that base is. And I chose to do the one color of mesh. You could have done 2 different colors, a color on the top, a color on the bottom. You could have done one color on the poops. You could have done one color on the ruffles. The possibilities are endless. So here I'm fixing to attach my sign. I need 2 pipe cleaners, and then I'm going to take another pipe cleaner and cut it in half just to give me extra length on those pipe cleaners to make it easier to attach my sign there on the wreath. Once these pipe cleaners are attached to the cable tie mount, I'm just going to fish those pipe cleaners through the mesh to the bottom of the wreath, or the underside of the wreath, and just attach those pipe cleaners to one of the rings underneath the wreath. That way we have a good secure sign on our wreath base. Okay, our sign is secure there on our wreath base. Next, we're going to start cutting ribbon tails. So typically I would do 2 ribbon tails, a 2.5 inch on the bottom and then a 1.5 inch on top. But for this wreath, I really kind of wanted to add some extra dimension and texture. So I'm going to do 3 ribbon tails, 1 2.5 inch and 2 1.5 inch. Because Trinity Tree sent me 4 ribbons, I just wanted to use up as much of the supplies as I could in this wreath and show people all of the different possibilities. So we finished our purple 2.5 inch. Now we're going to move on to our black and white striped 1.5 inch. Next, we're going to pick up our pink 1.5 inch. Get all of these cut. I'm cutting these at 13 inches. So we need 18. Those are ribbon tail boards that I'm using. Those ribbon tail boards can be purchased at hotmeshmom.com. So I'm just flipping that board. Ribbon tail boards just make cutting ribbon tails so much easier than cutting them one by one on a cutting mat like the one that I'm working with there on the surface of my table. Cut that off, pull them off the board, and then you've got your ribbon tail all there. I'm going to cut the top and cut the bottom. And you're probably wondering, like, why are my words not matching with my mouth? Well, this was actually recorded on a TikTok live, and I'm just repurposing this content for YouTube and Facebook. All right, next I'm going to cut dovetails in all of my ribbon tails. And you just fold it over like a taco and then cut it up towards the sunshine at a diagonal. And I typically snip off that little extra kind of fuzzy end. It just makes for a cleaner dovetail. All right, we're going to trim up all of the dovetails here on all 3 pieces, or all 3 colors of ribbon tails. Now that all my dovetails are cut, I'm going to start matching up my ribbon tails. So I'm going to put the purple on the bottom, the black and white in the middle, and the pink on top. Fold them over and make little ribbon tail packets, and I'm going to do this 18 times. All right, now that those are done, we're going to start putting our ribbon tails in our wreath. And so the reason I went ahead and put my sign on first is because I'm going to basically probably cancel out at least 2 of the ribbon tails, because that sign is going to be over 2 of the ties, leaving me with 16 sets of ribbon tails. I'm going to put these in, and since there's 3, I'm going to separate 3 on one side of the tie and then the other 3 on the other side of the tie, leaving this beautiful, almost star pattern to the ribbon tails. And it just adds all of this pop of color and texture to the wreath. We're going to put these in all 16 ties so that we use up all of the bundles. Okay, all of the bundles, all of the ribbon tail bundles are now in the wreath. We're going to work on our bow. So I use an easy bow maker. You can purchase this from Amazon or from Deco Exchange. If you would like, please utilize my supplier affiliate links. You can go to shoplikejohn.com. That's shoplikejohn.com. For the bottom layer of my bow, I'm going to use this beautiful floral yellow ribbon. I mix up my bows, but for this wreath, I went with a 4-loop bow on the bottom. Each loop was about 7 inches, and I had about a 8 to 9 inch ribbon tail. So this is the pinch, twist, loop method here on the Easy Bow Maker. So again, I've got 2 already on the bottom. I'm going to put 2 more on the top. And if you've been noticing, I'm looking over to the left or right, depending on how you're looking at this, but my iPad is over there, and I'm answering questions. So when I go live on TikTok or Facebook, all of my lives are from a teaching perspective. I want to help teach people how to make wreaths so that they're more proficient in their work, or if they're thinking about starting a wreath business, they have someone that can help instruct them on how to get started. All right, so we have our yellow. Now we're going to go into our purple. And for this layer, I'm going to do 3 loops. So put the ribbon there between the 2 pegs. Put it in again, pinch, twist, loop. Now I'm coming in about 1/4 of an inch, because you want to stagger your different layers so that your loops are really shown off, and one ribbon's not stacked over on top of another ribbon as you separate your loops on your bow. I'm just working there, getting that ribbon tail in position. Next, I'm going to come in with the black and white. And you have a lot of choices when doing the bow here. I wanted to just stick with the supplies that were in the kit. But you could choose different ribbons for your bow if you want to. So for this black and white, and then for the black and white, I'm just doing 2 loops. And a little bit longer ribbon tails, because I'm actually going to curl. I like to do curls on my 1.5 inch or 7/8 inch or 1/4 inch, depending on what ribbon I use there to finish off the bow. I really love that look of curls. And then down goes the pink off the table, because I'm just good like that. Knocking stuff off my table. All right, let's rescue that poor pink there. For the pink, we're just going to do 1 loop in the center, and that's going to cover up my zip tie and chenille stem there in the center of the bow. So I'm just grabbing a push pin to hold my ribbon there. I like to use push pins. Some people use tape. Some people use rubber bands. I like the push pin method. All right, so we're putting in our 1 loop there in the center. Cutting off the end of that ribbon. And there we have it. Next, we're going to put in the zip tie. So I used to just use chenille stems in the center of the bow, and I started watching people that use zip ties in the center, and I was kind of against zip ties for a while. At least in the beginning when I was making bows, I kind of struggled. I would get it too tight, and then I couldn't get the chenille stem in to attach it to the wreath, but I've become a little bit better with using zip ties. You'll see here I'm using 2 zip ties because I ran out of my longer zip ties. So I'm using two 6-inch to get a big enough loop to go around the entire center of the bow, lifting that bow off. So you'll see there we have a stack of bows, stack of ribbon called the stack. You want to keep that stack intact and get it as tight as you can that your fingers will allow you to. Next, you're going to put uh, your zip tie is already there, so you're going to hold on to that stack. I'm fishing out a pipe cleaner. I was hoping to find a white one, but I don't know where my white went, so I grabbed a pink one, which is fine. It matches. Get that chenille stem through that zip tie. Busting with it because the chenille stem kept bending and wouldn't go through the zip tie. You know how chenille stems do. They kind of have a mind of their own sometimes. So now I'm just tightening up the two zip ties to get a really good tight hold on my bow, snipping off the excess plastic on the zip ties so that they don't show in my bow. Next, I'm going to add a little bit longer piece of chenille stem so that I have plenty of length to get through the mesh and down underneath the bow to tie the bow off. You can also use longer chenille stems if you have them. I just have the regular, I think they're 12-inch chenille stems. Now I'm just positioning my ribbon tails. So initially they're kind of throughout the bow there. So I'm just positioning them all in a downward facing motion away from my loops so that they're all going to trickle down the wreath. All right, so let's attach the bow. I want it kind of diagonal across from my sign. If you'll notice, I have my sign in kind of cattywampus. I like that look. You could go straight across the top, straight across the center. You could put it more on the side. Whatever your preference is where you want to put your sign. All right, so I'm fishing this chenille stem through the mesh. And because I've got ruffles and poops, and this is fabric mesh, the chenille stem tends to want to bend on the end. So this may take a little bit of practice. You can also kind of move the ruffle out of the way. I'm fixing to do that here. Just go around the ruffle and then go through the poof mesh. So you just do what you need to do to get that chenille stem through the mesh. So you can see here I'm straightening back out the tip of that chenille stem because it bent as it was going through that thick fabric mesh. So lots of little tricks and tips to get that chenille stem through the mesh. Okay, I have my bow attached. Now I'm going to fluff out my bow. I like to fluff my bow out once it's on the wreath. Also, as you attach your bow to the wreath, you want it secure, but you don't want the center of that bow sunk down into the ribbon. It's not gonna show off that beautiful bow that you just spent time putting together and all that beautiful ribbon. So I'm just pulling my loops apart. Again, I have 4 loops on the bottom, 3 loops on the next layer, 2 loops on the 3rd layer, and then 1 loop on the 4th layer. So there's 4 layers to this bow. All right, next I'm working here on my ribbon tail, so I'm dovetailing the 2.5 inch. So on all the 2.5 inch, I'm going to dovetail, and then on the 1.5 inch, I'm going to roll up tightly. And then for right now, I'm just going to leave them rolled up while I cut the other dovetails. And then these I'll eventually come back. And when you roll them up, that bottom edge is going to be rolled up in the center. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find just the tip of one of the edges, and I'm going to pull that tip out very carefully and slowly and create that curl that kind of stretches out down and creates a curled ribbon tail. So just finishing up these dovetails, folding it in half like a taco, and then cutting it down at an angle from the fold down to the tip at about a 90-degree angle. All right, so see, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull that little bitty tip off the edge of that ribbon and just pull it down and create these really pretty elongated curls. All right, next we're going to start working with our picks. Again, these are the flocked Easter egg picks, and they come in your kit. If you are interested in getting this kit, you can go to wreathkitbyjohn.com while supplies last. All right, so these stems, these individual twigs with the flocked eggs, are really long, way too long for this wreath. So I'm going to actually find about halfway up one of the little flocked eggs, and I'm going to snip it in half. And not exactly in half, because I want varying lengths in the little bundles that I'm going to create. But I want to get the most use out of these picks. So I'm not going to use all 3 picks on this wreath. I'm going to use, I think, about 2. That leaves me with another pick to use on another project. So I'm going to take these picks, or these half stems. I'm going to gather them together. I'm just explaining to my TikTok fans. Well, I think initially I was just going to glue them in individually, but I wasn't happy with the look of that. So I ended up coming back and gathering. Not really sure what. Next, I'm just gathering up a cluster. I may be doing 3 or 4. Trimming off that little bit of excess branch there, putting them together, grabbing a zip tie, and I'm going to make little bundles, because by putting these together in little bundles and then putting glue at the end of the bundle, it's going to hold firm up against the tie. That's where I'm gluing these into, is around the tie where this bow is going into, and around the center of the bow, so that it holds in really well and doesn't fall off the wreath. So I've got my little bundle there. I've already put a bundle in up there. Okay, I've got my bundles in around the bow. Now I want to put a little cluster up in that top right corner of the sign, because I thought, okay, I've got these beautiful picks in and around the bow, but I wanted to also create a cluster so that there's a little bit of cluster of these picks in a diagonal from the bow. Just kind of lead your eyes up to this little star cluster there at the sign of at the side of the sign, excuse me, and just creates a focal point there on the edge of that sign, accenting the sign. Again, I'm answering questions there from the TikTok audience. So snipping off that end, adding some hot glue, as it looks like my hot glue stick's about to fall out of my hot glue gun. So then I put that there in right there at the tie. Make sure that's attached well to the tie. Hold it there for a little bit and let that glue dry. All right, once that glue dried, I want to come back and spread apart and open up these twigs. So I did it there on the end. Now I'll come back to the bow and open up the twigs around the bow, just getting the biggest bang I can for the buck there on those stems, so that they're not just all this little single cluster. They're spread out in this beautiful kind of star rays of light, aka flocked Easter egg picks throughout the bow. And then here in a minute, I'm going to pick up the wreath and show y'all what the wreath looks like in all its glory. I'm just kind of fussing with the, not fussing, but fluffing up and zhuzhing the bow, just make sure everything looks good, getting any glue strings out of the way, making sure those ribbon tail curls are nice and tight. Sometimes when I've been working on the bow, sometimes they'll get a little loose because they've been pushing up against my shirt there. All right, and here we go. Get ready. I'm taking a look at it in complete amazement at this new creation. And there we go. Look at this beautiful, beautiful deco mesh wreath full of beautiful ribbons, picks, a beautiful happy Easter sign. And, I've been making wreaths for about a year now, and it's amazing at how much I've grown over the past year. All right. Thank you all so much for watching.